And we are live. What's up, everyone? My name is Laura Cantu. I am super excited to be back for yet another live Monday. Yes, it's Monday. The weekend literally flew by. I feel like it just passed by so fast. The days, honestly, like after Thanksgiving, I'm so lost on whether it is Monday, Tuesday, because we had that long week, and just time, it's weird now. I can't believe we're already in December. It's December 6th. The holidays, are right around the corner, and, the year's about to end. It's crazy how quickly time flies, but I am so happy to be here today. We have a very informational presentation for you guys today. Today we are talking about the differences between private and public universities. Last week we talked about the differences between private and public high schools. And we also mentioned, charter and magnet schools. But today we're going to be focusing on universities themselves. And I will be talking about the differences between these types of institutions. We do get a lot of questions from parents, from students, and just members in general asking about the differences between these two types of institutions. So I see that Jenna Dean is saying hello. Hey Jenna, how are you? Very nice to have you back, and thank you for joining us. Please, if you're watching this for the first time, let me know where you're joining from and whether you are a student or a parent watching. And if you are a student, what grade are you in? Or if you are a parent, what grade is your student in? And as you're joining, I want to remind you of our weekly live schedule. We have live streams every Monday and Tuesdays. Those are the 2 days of the week where we do live streams. We do our Monday live streams in Spanish at 1 p.m. So David just did the Spanish live stream. And we do the English live streams at 3 p.m. Here on Facebook and on YouTube. So you are here. You are part of this English live stream. And then tomorrow on Tuesdays, we do these the same live streams or just similar live streams, but we do it on the Instagram and TikTok platforms. So we do, again, 1 p.m. Eastern Time Spanish and 3 p.m. Eastern Time English. So if you want to join us for that, make sure that you follow our other social medias. And I also want to remind you that we have created separate social media accounts for both languages because we are a bilingual, institution. We do speak English and Spanish, so we try to do our services in both languages. So we figured it's easy to separate, the languages and do English videos in one platform, in one social media page, and the Spanish ones in the other. So for all of our Spanish content, you will want to follow Best College Aid, just like that. And if you want to follow only our English content, you will follow Best College Aid USA, which is where you're watching me from right now. So just clarifying that this is, our content for English, our page for English content. So whether you're watching on YouTube and on Facebook, welcome. And don't forget to, share this page with somebody who might need it, somebody who might benefit from the information that we share in these live streams, because we do, consider that we give a lot of very valuable information, and we would like this information to be shared with people who need it. So if you know anybody who might need it, share it with them. All right, so today we're talking about private versus public universities. As always, David is going to be in the comments section, answering questions. David's saying, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So if you have any questions that I don't get to answer, because I do try to answer them live, David will answer your questions in the chat. And this is an encouragement, or this is a public safety announcement to let you know that you can ask questions throughout the live stream, because I will answer them. These live streams are, informational, but I also want them to be, interactive. And if you guys ask questions, it gets more interactive, and the more interactive it gets, we've realized, because we do live streams every week, people get more of their questions answered. And sometimes you never know, maybe someone will have the same questions that you have, and you are helping yourself and another person by asking something. So definitely don't be shy and ask away in the comment section. All right, as long as it is about the college admissions process and how it works and how we can help you. All right, so with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started and we talk about the differences between private and public universities. All right, so what is the main difference? What are public universities? What are private universities? Why are they different? Why are they similar? Well, the first thing I want to say is the major difference between public and private colleges lies in how they are funded, all right? This is the major difference between these two institutions because, if a student, there are some differences in sizes and differences in areas of study, which I will get more into, but the biggest differences is how they are funded, right? It lies on where the money comes from to fund these institutions. So for public universities, state governments pay for the cost of operating public schools, which oftentimes lowers tuition. So what does that mean? So public universities, these are universities like the University of North Carolina, the University of Florida, the University of Florida International University, UT Texas, UT Austin, all those big public universities. These are all universities that are funded by state governments. So the funds for these schools, to stay afloat and to, be able to, have funding and have resources for students. It all comes from state governments, right? And oftentimes, public universities will have lower tuitions than a private university. Now, I do want to mention that it depends from school to school, and just because a public university has lower tuition than a private university, this does not always mean that it will be cheaper to attend a public university in every case. If a student is from in-state and they get in-state tuition, because that is one thing that has to be considered. If a student goes to applies to a public university and they are from out of state, let's say a student is from Florida and they want to go to the University of Texas, UT Austin, they will have to pay out of state tuition because they're not in-state, residents. So that is when things start to change and tuition might be higher. So that's one thing to consider. I don't want to confuse you, and I don't want people to think like, oh, okay, so in-state public universities have low tuition, but a lot of times the lower tuition is just for in-state students, not for out-of-state students. So this works in a case-by-case basis, and sometimes, and I will talk about that in a little bit, private universities might have higher tuition costs, but they might have, just because the tuition cost is higher, they could have high financial aid packages. So that will make the tuition average out to be lower to a public university. And then that might be confusing. I'm not trying to get into tangents or confuse you too much, but I will explain a little bit more in a second. So just remember that when we're talking about funding, where the money comes from to fund these universities, public universities, the funding comes from state governments. All right. All right, so now talking about private universities, where does the money come from? Private institutions, private universities, do not receive funds from the state, which means tuition rates are generally higher. So where do the funds come from for private universities? They come from tuition and endowment, right? Endowment. I hope I'm saying that word correctly. Endowment is basically, money that is donated by donors, or money that alumni can give. It could come from private sources, but ultimately private institutions, the money is not, the funding does not come from the state. So that is the biggest differences between these two types of institutions. And since the money is coming from tuition, some private universities can be, the costs of attending can be higher. But a lot of private institutions, as a matter of fact, the private college that I attended had amazing financial aid for students for need-based aid students and also for merit-based aid, financial aid. So just because you attend or apply to a private college and tuition is really high at these colleges, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to go there without, receiving scholarships. As a matter of fact, a lot of these universities have huge endowments, from, private donors or alumni. So they have the resources to fund the education of students who need their education to be funded, right? So I want you to remember that. And yeah, so those are the two biggest differences. Now I'm going to give you a side-by-side comparison of the differences between private institutions and public institutions. All right, so let's show it. Alrighty, so I wish this had like a pointer where I could show you guys, where I'm clicking. I don't think it has. No, it doesn't have one. All right, anyway, sorry, I got a little distracted. All right, so private institutions and public institutions, what are the major differences? So in general, in average, there are some private institutions that, might be different from others, but generally, private institutions, private colleges might have smaller class sizes, whereas public institutions will have larger class sizes. And this is something to consider if you are a student or if you have a student who, might thrive in a more, in a smaller environment, who might get overwhelmed in bigger crowds. Maybe this a private institution might be better for them, right? Or if you have a student who's very outgoing, who, likes, be around other people, meeting new people, who likes change, then maybe a public institution with a larger class size might be better for them. Another difference between private and public institutions, universities, is that private universities might have higher tuition rates, whereas public institutions will have lower tuition rates. That's because, as I explained earlier, the funding for these institutions comes from different sources. But don't think that just because a private institution has a high tuition, it doesn't mean that they don't have good financial aid, right? Another difference between private and public institutions is that private institutions tend to have fewer academic majors, so fewer programs of study, and public have more academic majors. Now, don't think that just because a public institution has more, on average, not all institutions do, but they might have more, majors available for students that, that makes them automatically better. Sometimes private institutions, pride themselves on having less areas of studies, less careers available for students, but they are very focused on those careers. And since there's fewer majors, the school, really invests on making those programs of study really good for students. And they are, some of the top programs in the country, right? And since the class sizes are so small, students will have, smaller student to faculty ratios. So this might benefit students, who want a more personalized and more focused career path. A career study, what am I even saying? Who might want just, a smaller class size and just to really immerse in that program, right? And public universities might have, more opportunities or more, they might have more academic majors available for students, which might be good for students, who are maybe are undecided or, just want to go to a bigger school that has more options. So these are both good, and it all depends on the institution. It all depends on what the student wants to study. So keep in mind that it all depends on who the type of student the student is. So let's say a student likes, like I said earlier, or maybe they thrive better in a smaller classroom. They are better at learning in a more, hands-on, speaking, having a relationship with a teacher or a professor. Then a private university might be better for them because class sizes are smaller than going to a public university where class sizes are huge. Earlier, David gave an example on how sometimes, and this is true, at some public institutions, some public universities, there will be lectures of 300 students and there will be one teacher giving a lecture and one TA, and that's all. So some students don't benefit from that. I knew back in the day that I wouldn't benefit from that. I was the type of student because I graduated, but I was a type of student who liked interacting with the teacher, who liked being able to feel like I was, not that public universities don't make you feel this way, but I didn't feel like just a number, and that's what I really liked about a private university. My brother Francisco went to the University of North Carolina, if you can see that little emblem or wooden thingy. But he went there and he told me my class sizes were huge, but I didn't mind. He's the type of student who was very self-taught and he liked to read. He liked to do the research on his own. So he thrived in this environment, the public university environment. So at the end of the day, it all depends on the student and the type of student that they are. All right. So the final two differences between private and public universities is that private universities have higher financial aid awards, might have. There are some public universities that actually have great, financial aid awards, but generally private institutions have, higher endowments for the most part, so they can afford to have good financial aid for need-based students, and public universities tend to have lower financial aid awards. But once again, it depends. There are some public universities like the University of North Carolina that actually has great financial aid awards. They actually meet 100% of students, financial need. So this is one of those public universities that have good financial aid programs for students. But some public universities, unfortunately, are not as generous as the University of North Carolina. So really, students have to do the research, create a college list. That's why creating a college list is imperative for students in order to see what schools really do satisfy their families, financial needs, because that is one of the biggest things that need to be considered when, looking for universities is how much does the school cost? And not only how much does the school cost, but, what is the financial aid that they meet, the percentage? Do they meet 90%? Do they meet 100% financial need? Are they not really generous, with their financial aid awards? This all should be answered when doing your college search and creating your college list, right? All right, so final difference is, as I kind of explained earlier, private universities might have smaller student to faculty ratios, whereas public universities will have higher student to faculty ratios on average. There are large universities, private universities like the University of Miami. It's a bigger private school that might have, bigger class sizes, but there are, on average, private universities tend to have smaller class sizes, smaller student to faculty ratios. So these were, the differences between the two. Hopefully, I was able to explain, what these all included, what these universities, these institutions had to offer. Once again, the primary difference between private and public institutions is, it lies on how they are funded, where the money is coming from. Okay. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our Facebook channel, please. That would help us a lot. We want to continue to do good content that will benefit students and parents across the country. And also follow us in all of our social media, Best College Aid USA for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can also leave a comment down below this video's description and we will try to answer it. Thank you so much for joining us and for, taking the time of your day to watch me. Remember that we have live streams every Monday and I will be live again tomorrow on our social media platforms of Instagram and TikTok. So definitely Make sure that you join, and I will see you again, if not next week, here on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you so much for your time. Have an amazing week.